Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Consciousness Collective podcast. I am your host, Leb, and today I have another special guest with me, Colleen from Spiritualistik. Hi, Colleen.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for being on. Why don't you take a moment to kind of give people the idea of, who you are, what you do, and where to find you.
Yeah, so I am just a spiritual person, guide, I guess you can say. I dabble in a little bit of everything. My idea is wellness, mind, body, and spirit, so I kind of end up in a holistic roundabout. I do a lot of channeling, a lot of tarot, astrology, just straight channeling, energy work, and I usually am on YouTube, TikTok, Patreon, just the usual places like that, all at Spiritualistik. I do a lot of collective readings, a little bit of energy work, and a lot of just figuring out life in the universe and growth as an individual and as a collective. So that's my spiel. My personal system I work with is I'm a devotee of yoga, so that will be in there as an undercurrent usually, but I'm open to all. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And I will make sure to include all the places that people can find you in the descriptions down below, or wherever they happen to be, wherever you are finding this podcast. Also, if this is something that you are enjoying, especially if you are finding it on YouTube, please do remember to like, share, all the things, subscribe. It really helps out the channel and helps us kind of keep on doing this.
Gotta love it.
Oh. I know, right? It's always, I think actually for people in the spiritual realm and the consciousness realm, that is so much bigger of a question than it was, before we started waking up kind of thing. Who are you? Because before that, the answer was just simply a name.
Mm-hmm. And also, one thing I still struggle with in that category too is when people ask me, like, to introduce myself or what do I have going on, who are you? Job. I don't know. That's always been tricky for me because I still don't know how to describe my job. It's very much self-exploration and so much more than what we do, or more of like what we love, I think. What we become, maybe.
In a perfect world kind of thing, that's what your job should end up being, just simply your exploration of who you are and how you can put that out to your, to the people around you to kind of help them through in whatever way, or really just a way to explore your passions in a way that can be beneficial.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think it really aligns with the idea of Dharma a bit. Like, if nothing around you that we're taught mattered, like finances and having a roof over your head and people pleasing and fitting in with society, what would you be doing? And how would you do that in a way that serves your community and helps you grow? And you're happy and thriving. And finding that is a huge journey because we want to be happy, and sometimes you have to be a little selfish to find that. And then also a part of that is serving your community, and you don't want to self-sacrifice to do that. That's been my personal journey exploring Dharma for myself too. I know it's popular, and it's not popular, but it's a big topic in the spiritual community too, because we're often taught to give, to serve, to self-sacrifice. What's my soul mission in a self-sacrificing way? And we do want to serve. Mm-hmm. Like, that is unconditional love, genuinely, to be so open and welcoming to all that is, all people that are, all things in existence and consciousness that are. And then also that journey of finding self, it is kind of also tuning all of that out in order to explore that too. Who am I in relation to source, God, universe, light, consciousness? So Dharma is a big thing I've been navigating recently too with that.
Yeah, and I like that a lot. It actually goes really well into my idea, my understanding of evolution of the universe, except it's putting it, of course, as above, so below into the personal level, that we have to find this balance of both the unifying with all that is and all that is around us, our community, but also understanding where we fit into that as far as the identity.
So let me ask you then, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. What have you been exploring in your own spiritual journey recently? What have you been learning, unlearning, exploring, expanding, speculating?
It's funny, we were discussing it earlier, and yet it's still a difficult thing to put into words. I've been exploring where I fit in, well, kind of as we were saying, where I fit in with the collective and where the co-creation aspects of things come in. Just kind of expanding on how much of my reality is my creation, or the substance of my subconscious, my beliefs, my vibration being reflected back to me, and where that plays in when it comes to other focal points of consciousness, other people that are co-creating in the same way, that are involved in my life, that people that have been close to me for a long time, or even just kind of coming and going, and kind of just starting to understand a little bit more of how we co-create on that level.
I think that's such an interesting topic. Oftentimes, my personal tendency is to say everything is source manifesting. Everything is the universal will, even the universe acting through me, my own free will. It's the universe exerting its will through me, working through me. And oftentimes, too, relating with other people, grounded in the body as a human, with relationships, with connections, with an ego, in a good way or a bad way, however it chooses to manifest that day in that moment, that can often sound a little bit dismissive sometimes of the individual. And I think that sometimes when we co-create, we want to keep stuff for ourselves. What am I creating? What is Colleen creating? And then there's what is the collective creating? What do we all believe? So if one wanted to manifest something, you get as many people as you can to think it, believe it, see it, visualize it, work on it, and then it builds collectively. And also sometimes if I want to manifest something just for me, I don't want my parents' energy on it, or my friend's energy on it, or anyone else's energy on it, and I want it to just manifest the way that my vision is purely. And I think that that's spiritually intentional, because I still personally hold that belief or that understanding that all is consciousness, and we're experiencing individuality as a choice of source, as the universe experiencing itself. And so I think that when we come together in groups, or as friendships, relationships, family, I think that often can explain why we will so often meet people that we see ourselves in, not just because we're in that state of consciousness, but because we understand, I can relate to you, I've been where you are, I know how to solve your problem, or you seem like you can help me solve mine, or just I really resonate with you. And I know people believe in soul contracts. I chose these parents before I came into this body. I chose these relationships. This is a past life lover. I've been friends with you before. Things like that. Mm-hmm. But I really kind of think that we all create everything together. There's the individual level, there's the source level, and then there's the collective community level in between. And I think that it's kind of this middle ground of everything together. But at the end of the day, it's source that knows what's going on. And I think that's why subconscious work and channeling and things like that are really helpful and expansive and shine light on what's actually going on, because there are so many different layers to unfold there.
So would you say then that co-creation, I like that you brought up the term soul contracts there, because I do think that there is some amount of agreement or collaboration that goes on as we are choosing to explore these different aspects of existence, these different, facets of consciousness. But since we are sharing in those experiences with others, to both have their own path through it, but through, that same collaborative experience, it really, for me, it starts opening up the picture of time a little bit more. We say, pre-planned out, and it's well, if you look at it from a perspective of there is nothing but the present moment. So what does it mean to have something pre-planned? I don't really know. I'm curious your understanding on that.
So I have a really, well, I guess different maybe perspective on that. So if we think of the time-space continuum, that's known as the fourth dimension. And we think of that as like the fourth dimension, it's also our thought. It's our mental space. It's our experience of space and time as we walk through it as a physical being and have consciousness outside of it, also known as the 5D in the spiritual community. But the experience itself, I like to think of like a kind of a more scientific term of superposition. So, if you're looking at something that is predetermined, the other side of that is something that you are in the present moment currently creating. And that's where the line gets a little blurry between, am I predicting something? Is this a premonition? Or am I manifesting it and creating it in real time? And the answer is both and neither, because it's the universe, it's outside of that. And all time is happening at the same time. People believe in past, present, future. I always say parallel lifetimes, because in this reality, as we know it, using our system of math, which is not the only one, and our system of physics, which is not the only one, it's just the one that works for us, that's replicable to our human understanding, we have different timelines and realities and dimensions overlaying us, and we don't have access to all of them. We can't see everything that's happening outside of us. We just see a small bit of the light spectrum. We just hear things that we can hear with our ears, not what my dog can hear or what my lizard can hear or what something I can't see and don't know is there can hear. So I think that the reminder of gratitude, always going back to gratitude, and the present moment there, it's really, it really is all that exists, because the closer that you can get to is, just in general, the more relative everything becomes. And we stop trying to figure out why it's relative or how it's relative or relative to what, because that goes back around to that topic of who am I, what is this, what is going on, and the answer will continue to unfold into is. So the dynamic there of, am I having a premonition? Is this my psychic abilities? Is this my spiritual abilities? Is this a premonition? Am I seeing this timeline? Am I choosing this timeline? Am I on the right timeline? Are you choosing to engage with the idea of timelines? Is that your current internal experience? And you can navigate all of those different things, like different journeys, but you will continue to unfold it and go outside and beyond it. Or you can dive deep down and get really, really zoomed in. It's like the microcosm. You can play in there all day, and you can look at the macrocosm and say, oh, look at all those microcosms, but at the end of the day, they're still the same. Like, so that's my understanding of that. A little nerdy, but that's okay.
That was incredibly well put. No, I love that you brought in the idea of superposition into it, because that is so, like, that covers it very well, in that, like, all of these things can be true at the same time, you know? That's why one of my favorite things is some of the greatest truths we see as paradox. But when you kind of zoom out and understand that everything simply is, it's not as, they're not as, things aren't as exclusive as we see them to be. They are simply just existent. They are just more possibilities that are kind of occurring, or that can occur, and that we can choose to experience.
I totally resonate with that. I think the outside of duality is consciousness that as spiritual people we often strive to attain, but we chose to manifest within duality for a reason, and the experience of that is beautiful and intentional too. It's the idea of, well, light must be good and it must be right? Dark must be bad, it must be negative, right? And you can look at positive ions and negative ions, but they bond together. And at the end of the day, it's just the dissemination of the two, I think. That's why my logo, actually, for my business, it's the bagua with a yin-yang in the middle, but I didn't make one light and I didn't make one dark. And I have people ask me about it all the time. They'll say, that gives me the ick. It's a yin-yang without the light and the dark. It's just there. I'm like,
Like, yeah, I get it. Well, and you referred to it as the bagua. I recognize it as like the hexagrams, like from the I Ching. Does that
Yeah,
ring a
that's
bell?
what yeah. They're the
I just didn't
same.
have the name there.
No,
Oh,
they're both correct. They're both correct. It's just I'm not very well versed in I Ching, but I am pretty well versed in Feng Shui, and so that's the modality that I see it through. So that's all. Same thing, different name, I think. Also,
yeah.
that's not my like forte wheelhouse necessarily. It's just what got me into all of this was Chinese medicine and um got to stay true to
That's
my roots even though I traveled beyond it. Kind of.
yeah, but it's always. I mean, it's good to know where you started from. You brought up point. Let's see how I'm forgetting exactly how you said it, but the whole the experience of timelines, and if that is what you are choosing to experience part. I absolutely love that you said that because it points to so many of the things in the spirituality community, in the spiritual community, that people get kind of wrapped up in. Of their, they gain an understanding or a mode of understanding for certain concepts like timelines or like alternate realities or different dimensions. And that almost, it oftentimes, and I think everybody goes through this on this journey, there is a point at which they kind of start to identify with those understandings maybe a little bit too strongly, or to a point that they are held in that position, held in that belief. But there is still constantly, for me at least, there is a drive to kind of, I want to say dissect those things, but that's actually like dissect is kind of implying looking within. I aim to look a little bit more like beyond those kinds of things. And a little bit as like we were talking about just before we started recording, of kind of almost stepping out of the smaller, like the spirituality lenses, and into the larger, just the consciousness of the awareness of that these are all simply concepts that we use to experience and to understand existence.
I totally see what you're saying there, and I agree with that. It's about the consciousness. It's not about the lens that the consciousness manifests. I also see it in a different way where it's helpful because I think that so consciousness is almost like the observer standpoint to my understanding. It just is. It's outside of all of the nuance. And we are here for the nuance. And some of the things that we'll hear in spirituality a lot are I reached this understanding, this level of consciousness. I reached this awakening, and I want to anchor it down. And so that faith in that, it comes down to what do you see? How do you express it? How are you loving about it? How does it serve you? And then it hits the solar plexus, it hits the ego, and then you feel good about it as it hits your sacral, and then it grounds into your reality through the root. And so I think in essence, it is anchoring that vibration into the earth, into the collective awareness as you express it and you be about it. I think of it, I don't intend to speak about it in a linear manner because I don't understand it in a linear way. I don't think it is linear, but just for simplicity's sake, if there's a staircase or a ladder and everyone is kind of on a different step, reaching their hand down, helping someone else get there, reaching their hand down, helping someone else get there. So everyone kind of has someone to help them expand and somewhere down that they can like I'll give you a hand up and then you give me a hand up, and like it's like this helpful growth and evolution thing. So I think that it's helpful when it comes to individual identification with that. I think over-identifying with anything, being too attached to any belief system or any understanding or any identification of self, it can become a distortion in the understanding of what self means. But there's also a reason for it too, that is what helps that person in that point of their life, in their journey to get to where they're going intentionally, also aware of the fact that they might be really holding on to it, and that might be the very thing that helps them crack into that next level. The very thing that helps me crack into that next level, because I do that sometimes too. I'm a human, I'm wearing a bow in my hair, it's trendy, and I think it's cute. And in 2 years, I'll probably look back and go, ew, like, what was I thinking? And today, I love it. And when it comes to the spiritual stuff, we can do the same thing. There's a lot of spirituality that's so trendy, and it gets so hyper trendy that then it gives people the ick. Tarot on TikTok is a great example. I was giving tarot readings on TikTok. People were like, what are those cards? What are you doing? I had people like, what is TikTok? Now, you can't even go on TikTok. I mean, I can't go on TikTok without people reading cards all over the place. People that I don't even know about tarot cards are like, oh, you know those random tarot ladies on TikTok? Like, oh my gosh. And it becomes so concentrated. But I think that that's a really cool thing in and of itself. Like, it wants to anchor, it wants to ground. And the root chakra, like the earth energy, the 3D, it vibrates slower. It's not a lower wavelength necessarily, like in hertz technically, yeah, but it's a slower, denser wavelength. So you're going to see more of it. It's going to be slow. We're going to feel attached to it, and then unfolds that journey to climb back up. And then we want to anchor it back down. And it's evolutionary consciousness as a collective here on Earth. So when you are outside of it and you're like, why can't they just see this? Is it annoying? Yes. Also, is that something that one could be holding on to as a projection? Also, yes. And both are true and untrue also, because paradox, universe, duality, consciousness. And that
it is
straight from the ego, love. So, for me to say that, you know, like, so I think it serves. I think it serves in the way it's supposed to. And if that's what works for them, some people, they're so gung-ho about astrology and they're not there for tarot. Some people, their religion, their belief system, it is it for them and it helps them grow where they're supposed to, and they don't do the spirituality stuff. I think that if it's what you give permission, spiritually or consciously, to work for you, and you understand it, and it's there and it helps you navigate and grow, I think that's the point, because the universe is trying to expand. And so it will find the path of least resistance. That's my philosophy on it.
Well, and I think that is so very crucial. Like, you got to so many great points just in there. That everybody is finding their own path, and everybody has their own, you know, not only path to take, but they have their own set of things to experience, and that includes their beliefs, their understandings of what is. Actually, I could just stop there. And that is beautiful in and of itself. And I love how you also referred to it as those understandings coming down through the chakra system. And especially once it gets down to the solar plexus chakra. And that's where the kind of ego becomes involved. And that slightly, like, there becomes more of a sense of identification with a certain belief or understanding. And for some people and some beliefs, like, it doesn't, their identity is just chooses to stop there, essentially. And that is part of their experience. That is doing for them what they are here to do, in essence. But that entire journey of bringing things from crown down to root, that, like, every step in there is important in my opinion, my perspective. And I think that just even learning how to do that and learning how to, I'm not even sure how to access the information or the understandings that are to be brought down, and be able to actually ground them into the 3D, into the physical reality, down to the root. That in and of itself is a process, and I think it's a big part of what goes on during spiritual awakenings. People are starting to learn how to do that, because we start to access, however you want to refer to it, a higher level of consciousness or higher, dimensional understanding, and yet still at the same time we are here to bring it down into this duality, into this reality, this dualistic reality, I should say. Sometimes it gets stuck along the way, And you mentioned the solar plexus being where the ego comes in, but I think in my experience, the ego can kind of come in just about any one of those stages. You mentioned the concept earlier of how did you put it? The ego connected to the third eye.
Mm-hmm.
When we were talking about essentially spiritual gifts coming in, I do believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because when you start to open up those abilities, right? Open up those. Man, I'm wishing I remembered how I referred to it at one point. This conversation came up during somebody else's live a few days ago. How, as we open up those gifts and learn to use our third eye to be able to sense beyond the 3D, again, part of our identification gets a little bit wrapped up in there. And that is a source of spiritual ego, quite honestly. And what, if left unchecked or unvisited, can turn into full-blown spiritual psychosis, by my understanding.
Absolutely. I think that, well, as humans, just in general, we're really good at a lot of things. But there are two things that, pertaining to this, we are very gifted, talented, skilled, creme de la creme. And that is holding on to things and confirmation bias. We love those two things. And
yes, we do.
I can't help but notice as well. So a lot of those people who are really stuck to that belief system, they also oftentimes, and I've been through it myself, of course, I see it happen all the time, every day. There's no good or bad to it. I think it's just a manifestation of a journey. When you really hold on to a belief spiritually, whether it's spiritual psychosis or it's, say, a certain type of spiritual connection or a soul contract or what your mission, whatever it is, as you anchor these energies down and you attach to them, oftentimes there will be a journey of, why is my soul mission self-sacrificing? Why do I have to sacrifice my true authentic self? Why do I have to sacrifice myself, the ego, the identification of self, for others, for helping? And then you end up being an overgiver, and it doesn't come from anything but a place of love, a place of trying to help, but it does come from holding on to something. And that is where I think, if you look at it, just the 7 chakra systems, we want to have a healthy, balanced root, sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, pineal, crown chakra system. And so I think that the demonization of the solar plexus chakra in the spiritual community in and of itself is a manifestation of ego, and it's not helpful, because you do need to shed those layers of self-identification, those layers of ego, if you choose to, if that's part of your journey. But also, it usually comes from connection to the higher realms and the wanting to bring that down, and it has to come through you. You have to embody it, to create something from it, to ground it. And that requires, in that essence, in that direction, you to shed what you were, to embody that, and then shed that to leave it behind, so that you can grow and evolve into something else as it comes back up. So, often with what I referred to in our little chat before this as, and I say this lovingly, so gently, I do it myself, so there's absolutely no judgment here, but the spiritual party tricks that can come along with it, they're beautiful, they're wonderful, and we love them. And it's okay to be proud of your growth, and you unlock this new gift and it's so cool and you're proud of it, and pride is good or bad depending. It's yellow. Is it happy yellow? Is it a sad yellow? Is it a distorted yellow? It's yellow. And so we can say, I'm psychic, I'm clairvoyant, I see this, I have different timelines, I know this to be true. And because you know this, in the perspective of duality and in quantum mechanics, in universal energy, you can know something so hard. Also, all energies are always constantly evolving into their opposite, because energy is always moving and shaking. So as soon as it hits one thing, it must evolve into the other. And so you can be the most egoless person in the entire world, the most spiritual person, and you know what's going to happen? You're going to get hit with right here, right now, planet Earth, bare feet on the ground, kind of stuff. And when you are so grounded, you've got everything perfectly figured out in your life. You're like, I got the bag, I got my routine down, I'm doing my cold showers in the morning. I am on top of my material stuff. Boom, right up you go, releasing that ego. And I think that it's just what it is. It's that little bit of yin that's in the yang and the little bit of that yang that's in the yin. And it's so easy to be in one perspective and be like, no, I've got it down. And you do. You're not wrong. But also, they don't not have it down. And it's so funny. It's so funny. It's like this this game of chicken between people who just want to help and grow. And so, in the perspective of just being outside of all of that, that is where something I've learned to embrace, which when you hold on to certain belief systems, like this is right, this is wrong, this is spiritual, this is not, this is Akashic, this is timeline, whatever, that can lead to dismissing certain other belief systems, other things. And so in the state of outside of all of it, they're all valid because they're all serving their purpose. And so where I am right now, it might not be where you are. We might disagree on certain things in principle, but all are valid, all are intentional by the universe to grow and expand in love, in consciousness. So how could it be bad? But how could it be good? It all just is. See, even when you want to lean one way, you gotta neutralize it.
You gotta, yep. Part of me just wants to go, oh, that's great, but I disagree. No, I actually fully agree with you. Don't worry about it. It is so much a part of that human experience, though. Even with the, awakening in the spiritual or the conscious journey, right? There is that balance that we kind of started off with, of the whole, you are going from the sense of oneness with everything to the sense of one, just being one individual, that ego. And I think that the constant, kind of shifting back and forth that we go through of, I've learned this wonderful new thing, and now I know this, and I have this knowledge within me, and we get kind of into that identification with it. And that's part of the integration process. It's another step of the, well, as you were saying earlier, it is grounding it down into the 3D, into the understanding. And it is so funny to me to watch people, watch when spiritual ego pops up. Have you ever seen somebody that has an ego about not having an ego? That's one of my favorite ones, when somebody's just sitting there and go, no, there is no sense of self here. I know, I am just one with the universe. I am, and but they're coming at it from this over-identified place. It cracks me up every time, but at the same time, I can't really judge because, well, I've been there in my own various steps and stages. I'm still fully aware that I have an ego. Now I have an ego about being aware that I have an ego. There we go. See, there's just this constant back and forth in understanding. And it all depends on kind of where you are, where an individual is on that pendulum swing kind of thing, as to where they start judging something as good or bad, right or wrong. Because even as we are discussing these subjects and discussing it from a much more, removed perspective, or from that kind of outside perspective, at the same time, I can tell you that there are things in this world that I think are good or bad. I still have that. That's part of the experience. That's part of the duality that we have here. And the exploration of that is just, quite honestly, it's hilarious. I sit back and laugh at so many realizations just constantly. And especially within myself, of now you see where you've been stuck, don't you? Yep. Just gotta laugh at yourself, because that's part of the growth. It really is.
That kind of reminds me of a few different things. One, even in just a really grounded human sense, no one understands something better than the person going through it, right? And at the same time, sometimes to have clarity, you need an outside perspective so that you can just get out, you're too close to it. And I think that that duality in and of itself is manifesting in that way. It also reminds me of manifestation, whether it's Neville Goddard, law of attraction, law of assumption, whatever it is. There are two key factors to manifestation. One is becoming, and one is detaching. And I think that it's part of that ego integration and releasing. And it's like a flower that blossoms, it needs to become, the bud will come up from the center, and those petals will still shed. And as those petals shed, it still becomes something new, and it can continue to grow like this. And it doesn't make any of the petals better or worse. It just means that their time has come to evolve and unfold and, well, begin and end. But I think it's really the process of sustaining that's in the middle there, the process of being. It's not about what you were or what you're becoming, it's about what you are. It's about the present moment. And so I think it's totally funny what you said with the when you watch yourself have an ego, and that's a good thing and it's a bad thing, and then it's good that it's good, or it's bad that it's good, and then it's bad that it's like, yes to all of it, because that's the whole point. And it goes back to that question of, well, what am I, and you want to become more authentic. And so on that journey to that self-discovery that is spiritual and is, what am I? Oh my gosh, it's consciousness. It just is. Well, you have to be more selfish. You have to get to know yourself more. You have to be like, no, I am confident, and I am acting in my own self-interest, and I am doing what serves me, and I am getting to know myself better and expressing that and ignoring everything else so that I can grow. And then when you're like, yes, this is where I want to be, I found this, I want to make my world about it, then it all comes falling down. And it's the most beautiful thing in the whole world, and we love to hold on to things when they're falling down. It's also how you get smashed. We do it all over again.
Those good old tower moments.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything mean, bad, or wrong about the cycle of life and death. I think that it's what we experience because it's beautiful, and it's finite, and it's something that is infinite, choosing to experience what is finite. And I think that that's the point.
Very well said. Very, very well said. You've got the bow in your hair. You wrapped that one up in a nice little bow by itself, like with a nice little bow itself. It is so the point. The infinite experiencing the finite. And again, that's the whole, like, yeah. The way that ties it all up is just absolutely beautiful. And it really, I really don't know where to go from there. Like, huh? Yeah, I was gonna say this does not happen on here very often, where I am completely just like, oh, I got, wow. I have nothing to really add on to that. That's this is. Hold on, excuse me, while my whole reality just breaks down again, and let me just put it back together. I'll get this in just a moment. Just give me like 5 seconds. No, that's all I need.
We're having fun now.
We are, exactly. Okay. We pretty much just dissected everything right there.
That's it. I'm done. I can ascend to source now. Wait, that was so ego of me. Wait, I'm not done.
No, that was. That was perfect. Yeah, no.
Observers. Observers. Astrally project. Watch it from the outside. No judgment.
What really gets me as funny is that we can sit here and explore these conceptually, right, from that observer perspective. And as we just kind of, went through, it's like, oh, see, we've got it all figured out right there, right? Egoic, yes, I know. At the same time, though, life is hard.
Yeah.
Okay. So the idea of seeking enlightenment, and coming to the grand realizations of the universe and of what is, there's an aspect like of me that, yep, I think that is part of the point of why we are here, to have that kind of greater understanding. But I also think that that's not the point at all. There's that whole duality, because that, enlightened state, and depending on what you believe, like when we are in spirit, when we are back to connected one with source, we know all that shit. That's where we came from. But the point of coming here is not necessarily, well, the part of the point of coming here is to forget that, and to be able to explore, and to, I think, find our way back there through the individuated perspective that we are, through the experience of the ego and the experience of disconnection from source, from all that is. And with that comes all the funny little nuances like that we have been talking about, of the judgments of good and bad, and trying to transcend that idea, and then realizing that, oh, you think that transcending the idea of good and bad, well, that's a good thing, right? And just the constant paradox that we are having, like, to me, and of course I say this from the position that I am at, or from the place that I am in my own journey, it seems as though it's never ending, that there is always kind of going to be that next realization, or that next way to kind of integrate that duality experience, and that we are constantly striving for a bar that is constantly moving.
I think that is something that oftentimes, I know there are going to be people who listen to this and go, not me, I don't resonate with that, and that's valid. But I think that in the human experience, our feeling repelled towards that is natural. It's intentional. Because the bar is always moving higher. And part of what you learn if you are, say, going to therapy, or you're working on self-help, or personal development, it's a lot of, you're perfect the way that you are, which universally and spiritually it's true. And it's a lot of, you are not a self-development project. You are not always needing to be under construction. You are okay the way that you are, here, now, today, with the nuance, with the emotions, with the healthy, with the toxic, with the ego, with the whatever it is that you have going on. And also, we do live in kind of a competitive society that is, at least where we're living, highly capitalistic. Where we're living, there is a lot of competition. You always want to build. It's bigger and better and bigger and better. And it's interesting because it feels so anti-divine almost. It feels so egoic, but it's also hilarious because the inside-out perspective of that is the universe is always infinitely expanding. It is always infinitely growing and evolving. The bar is always moving. But our relationship to that doesn't need to change. We can stay right where we are, and the bar can move, and it can come back. And we can try to catch up with it all of the time and be running around. And some of us are amazing at the material, and we've got that totally down, and the spiritual stuff is just, I don't know. I don't know. It's just there, maybe, kind of, probably, perhaps. And for some people, it's the other way around. Spiritual masters. They do have it all figured out. Everything's infinitely expanding. So are they. And in the material realm, they don't know what's going on. This is new. They feel like an alien. Walking around barefoot, no cash in their pocket, having a hard time communicating with other people. And there's all the nuance in between that too. There's worse and better and different than all of those things I just described. It's just an example. And so I think that it is normal because we are here to forget. And Jason Mraz said this one time, and I remembered it because it felt just good to my system. I think this is the quote. I think part of the reason why we forget is because it feels so good to remember again. And so in that process of forgetting, that is like, if we identify with source, we have to shed that. That is our ego death. And in coming back to source, we have to shed everything we've become along the way because that is our ego death. So I think it's natural both ways. My philosophy, though, personally, is that you gotta have a healthy crown chakra. Whatever way that manifests, because you don't want one of your chakras to not be in balance with the other. And again, that's me, that's my belief, that's my understanding. Because there are people who don't have, to me, it's faith. It's connection to divine. Some people don't believe in divine. Some people don't believe in God, source, universe, light. Some people don't have faith in anything. But I think that whatever that energy is, as long as it's open and it's healthy and it's balanced in some way, whatever your way is of relating to the world, relating to the universe, as long as you're not disassociating from your solar plexus, or you're not disassociating from your crown chakra, or any of your other chakras for that matter, I think that is what is important. You know, we're all individual ecosystems working in a larger ecosystem, working in an even larger ecosystem, and it's infinitely expanding. And some of our jobs are to stay still and remind people that there is stillness in the movement, and other people, it's to remind them that there's movement in the stillness, or that there's good in the bad, or there's bad in the good, or there's neutrality outside of it. Again, it's superposition. It's super relative.
Mm-hmm.
Relative to what? Oh, like, part of it is everything, always, all the time. Another part of it is don't know, don't care, doesn't matter. Like, so
yeah.
But I think it's beautiful.
Well, and one point, simply the spectrum of human experience is absolutely wonderful. And you can, well, a little bit about what you were saying earlier about how some can be, do very well in the material and some do very well in the spiritual. And there are points of mastery all along the way. And somebody may be a master of the physical, right? Master of the material world. And yet another person who is more, who has become a master in the spiritual or in the esoteric or whatnot, they won't see that. They might not even be able to acknowledge that, hey, you do what you do and you do it damn well. Because we get kind of stuck in those judgments or those relative perspectives. That whole like relativistic thing, like what is relative to what? And for so many, our only point of judgment is ourselves and where we are. And that can really close people off to either the understanding, the appreciation, the even acknowledgement of where others are. I don't know, I like that idea. But you mentioned faith and having no faith in anything. Now, if you ask me, that's still faith. That is a faith in nothing. That is a knowing without fully knowing, but you tell somebody, like if you were to tell an atheist that, I'm like, no, you have faith. You just have faith in that nothing exists or that there isn't a God. Like that's still a belief, but it's, I've had that discussion before with people because I used to love to argue with atheists because, whatever spiritual ego, I went through that phase, right? And that was always one of the things that kind of caught me was when people, and don't get me wrong, this can be true for anybody, not just atheists, but it can be true for spiritualists too, of not understanding that your faith is a faith, and that honestly, the majority of the things that we know, like when we talk about scientific knowledge and all those different things, that is a type of faith as well, because I'm sorry, but I don't have a full conscious experience of, say, the time slowing down at the speed of light. Sorry, I haven't been there, so I don't know, but I trust that it's there. So but we quote it as like, oh well, we've proven this as relatively, we've proven it mathematically. It's like, well, yeah, but there's proof. If you look hard enough for proof of something, you're gonna find it one way or another. There's another whole like, did we create it? Did we find it? Is this synchronicity? Is this where does that fit in?
That too, I think it also reminds me of the different realities, different timelines, different dimensions. That's all what we experience with science. It's the fourth dimension. It is experience in and of itself. And to me, I also agree with what you said about science can be a faith. It might not be a religion. It is something to have faith in the general term of faith in Webster's dictionary, not an A, my hands are together, I'm praying to something kind of vibe. But to me, a healthy solar plexus says, I am a big fish in a small pond. And a healthy crown chakra says, I am but a very tiny piece of this really big system, this really big universe. There is something bigger than me out there. And also, the crown chakra can lead you into, I am all, everything is, and I'm part of that, and it's consciousness through me. And then the ego can also say, but I am so small, I am so small. And so I think that just that exploration itself it is healthy, it is wealthy, it is abundant, it is divine. And we all have different journeys of experiencing that. I also think it's really funny, too, what you said about science is always trying to discover, but where did it come from? And in this timeline, in this reality, there is an answer we can find. But with one little glitch of a matrix, to put it lightly, the answer can be totally different. And science is always trying to prove things, and science also unproves other science all the time. Recently, someone just discovered that, yes, things don't exist without an observer. Whoa! Also, that when things are observed, they structurally change. And those two things go hand in hand together, because that is creation. That is creation. And so whether it's in a scientific perspective or a spiritual perspective, or you're trying to utilize it to manifest, it's again that idea of embodying and then detachment. Embodying and then detachment. And regardless of whether it's in consciousness, in ego, in manifestation, I use like a personal little check-in tool to observe non-judgmentally where I am, and then align it back to where I want it to be. And both of those things will be different depending on the day and my journey and what I'm working on. But I will look at my natural rhythm of breath and inhale with I and exhale with am. And I'll see where on that spectrum between I and is or am, where am I naturally floating? Sometimes I want it to be in the middle, so they're equal. And I just observe it where it is intentionally, like subconsciously, not on purpose. And then I'll try to navigate it either more towards am or more towards the center. Or sometimes I'm like, breathing out so hard fully in am, and I'm like, okay, I need a little bit more of that ego, or I need a little less of that ego, or I want them to be equal, like equidistant to one another. So that's a personal check-in tool that I use, and there's not a right or a wrong where you're supposed to be or what you should be doing. It's just a nice little parameter to use for a journey, I think. And that's scientific too, you want carbon dioxide, started all of this life on this planet. Also, we exhale carbon dioxide as waste from our body. We, subconsciously create life all of the time. So, yeah, I think we're small part of something big and a big part of something small. They're both true, and there's outside of it, too.
I love that. Also, that check-in. I'm curious. You've got my attention there. The I am. When you say you use that as a check-in, are you simply observing like the kind of the quality, the length, the whatever of each, the inhale and the exhale, like on the I, on the M, and checking in to see essentially how each of those feels for you at the moment?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then kind of going from there? That,
So
I had never heard that before. Please, feel free to expand on that.
So I like to observe usually it's the length of the inhale and the length of the exhale. So it lets me know, first of all, where am I placing more energy? Is it the I, the inhale? Am I bringing energy into me? Or am I putting more length towards the exhale? Is it longer towards the M? Am I more in that vibe? And then there are other things to observe as well. Is one a little bit uncomfortable? Is one a little bit shaky? Does one feel like a relief? It's often like, this will resonate, I think, for a lot of people out there, since this is just spiritual in general. But when you learn about crystals, or when someone asks, so which crystal should I get? The answer is the one that attracts you and or the one that repels you. So whether it feels good or it feels bad, it's showing you something. It's lighting something up, and your response to that is different. Where you want it to be, what you want it to mean, is going to be a lesson in and of itself. But for that little check-in with the breath, I think that just observing it where it is naturally, without judgment, without trying to adjust your breath, it shows you where you are in that moment. And that's not a statement of where you always are, or who you are, or what you are. It's just in that moment. And if you'd like, you can adjust it to where you feel like it should be, or where you want it to be, or just explore it to see how it feels in different states of consciousness. I kind of found a very long time ago, I was doing a guided meditation from Sadhguru, my gosh, at least 10, 15 years ago on YouTube. And it was a Kriya meditation specifically, which is interesting because now I practice Kriya yoga, so it comes full circle for my journey. Was inhale, I am not this body. Exhale, I am also not this mind. Or I'm not even this mind. I'm not this body, and I am not even this mind. And it takes you out of body, and takes you out of the experience of being an observer of your body, and just floats you out into that consciousness. And then I realized that for me, there were too many words. And then I was thinking too much about my mind and my body, even though I was floating outside of them, and I was having this observing of the system energy, and I wanted to let it go. And I found a little bit of this, it's kind of like when you try to meditate or you think, and you're thinking about not thinking about anything. It is possible to clear your mind fully in meditation, but when you're thinking about it, you're thinking about something. And it was kind of giving me that energy a little bit. It's a great practice. It helped me get very far and cracked me open another level when I needed it, when I found it. But I like to use I am as a little checkpoint. And that's also a practice that you can find in Kriya as well. So not just that flavor of Kriya, but just general Kriya as has been passed down. So it gives like a spectrum there so that you can just observe, and then you can work with it in any way that it does or does not call to you. So that's something that I love to share, and it helps me out a lot. I practice it daily.
Yeah, I really like that too. That's something I'd never really heard anything quite like it. Yes, I will say. But just a beautiful little check-in. And I think once again, it also shows you that kind of, from that outside perspective, it shows you not only where you are, but it also shows you where you would prefer to be. As you start to notice which one is uncomfortable, what do I want more of? And just as you said, like, this isn't a state for where, or a statement of where you're stuck. It's simply where you are. Well, yeah, because it changes with the breath, which we are, as long as we're here, we're generally breathing, you know. as I like to say, I highly recommend breathing. It is very good for your health. I think that's a safe statement that, you know, I'm not going to get yelled at for bad health advice on that one. So breathing is good.
Big shout out to breathing right now. Love breath. Very sustainable practice. Find that it helps a lot. Also, Big shout out to mouth taping. I highly recommend. Recently started it. It's changed my quality.
Oh.
Yeah. I've been reading Breath by James Nestor. It's been recommended to me by so many people through the little tiny community that I've built. And I'm like breathing, like, I do breathing. I started reading it and I was like, I don't know breathing. That's something I have not been through. So
got that ego check on that one. Like, oh yeah, I know what this is. Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, we have fun. We have fun, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Love that. So at this point in the recording, I am going to take the moment to basically put in a to be continued. For those of you all that are listening, this has been a wonderful conversation, a wonderful episode. I am recording this very part afterwards to kind of split this up just due to the length that it went. This conversation, we're actually just about halfway through, or just a little over halfway through at the time that I am inserting this in. So I do want to say thank you very much to Colleen. She is not here with me at the time of this recording, but she will be here in the next one. This has been a great conversation. I enjoyed the hell out of this one, and quite obviously so, because it went a full 2 hours, and so I've decided to split it up into 2 episodes. So thank you all very much for listening this far. Do stay tuned in or turn on your notifications, or however you like. Be sure to follow to catch the next one as we continue on, and I can barely even say finish this conversation, but we continue on this conversation and explore more wonderful topics. Thank you guys so much for listening this far. Do remember to do the like, the subscribe, the follow, all of those things. I really appreciate it. Check out the description below for information of where you can find the podcast, how you can join the Consciousness Collective Discord, and I will also have all of the contact information, or all the places that you can find Colleen as well from Spiritualistik. This has been a wonderful episode, and thank you very much for listening again, and hope to see you on the next one.